For 3 months, Leo had thrown himself at Julian Vance. They had shared embraces and searing kisses. Julian had showered him with gifts, opulent things Leo would never buy for himself. Yet every time Leo gathered his courage to ask for something real, something defined, Julian would deflect with the same gentle poison. Let's wait a little longer. Tonight, fueled by bourbon and the dim intimacy of Julian's car, Leo made his 5th and final attempt. He had leaned in, their lips a breath apart, and whispered the question one last time. Julian's gaze was tender, his fingers tracing the line of Leo's jaw, a gesture that sent a deceptive jolt of hope through him. But the answer was the same devastating echo. He had been rejected 4 times with the exact same excuse. A cold certainty settled in Leo's chest. He stared at Julian, really stared, until the older man's placid expression wavered and a questioning eyebrow rose. Leo's infatuation, sparked by the man's sharp, arresting features, had burned hot and fast for 3 months. He had confessed his feelings 4 times. This was the last. He could be led on, but not after he had laid his heart bare so completely. Julian was treating him like a game, a pleasant diversion. Leo announced that this was the end of it, that Julian shouldn't contact him again. He reached for the door handle, but a firm grip on his wrist pulled him back. Julian's voice was low when he asked where Leo was going, if he was angry. The question was so infuriatingly calm that something in Leo snapped. He swung, the crack of his palm against Julian's cheek echoing in the confined space. He demanded to know if Julian found it amusing, stringing him along, or if he was some married man seeking cheap thrills. Julian's head was turned by the force of the blow, his expression one of pure astonishment. For a few seconds, he was just stunned. But when his eyes met Leo's again, the shock had been replaced by something dark and dangerous. A shiver of unease traced its way down Leo's spine. Julian denied having a family, but that wasn't the answer Leo wanted. He didn't want excuses. He told Julian he could have whatever secrets he wanted. He was done. He threw open the door, deleted Julian's number with a few vicious taps, and didn't look back. Back in his small apartment, he gathered every expensive gift, the cashmere scarf, the Swiss watch, the first Ion book, and packed them into a box for a courier in the morning. With the task done, the alcohol finally hit him, a dull throb behind his eyes. He collapsed onto his bed, but sleep wouldn't come. His eyes burned in the dark. He rarely drank, and tonight had been a calculated risk, a hope that the liquor might lower both their inhibitions. He fished a small, square foil packet from his pocket, something he'd bought in a fit of optimistic planning, and tossed it onto his nightstand. He had to admit it. The slap was born of humiliation. He liked Julian, he truly did, but he couldn't comprehend why the man would entertain his pursuit only to hold him at arm's length. If Julian had simply said he wasn't interested, Leo would have walked away weeks ago. Their first meeting had been at a high-concept speakeasy where Leo worked part-time. To make ends meet, he'd taken a job as an atmospheric performer, costumed as a dark, alluring faun, weaving through the wealthy patrons. He saw Julian across the crowded room, a still point of severe, chiseled beauty in the swirling chaos. Leo had approached him, pouring his drink with a practiced, intimate proximity, but Julian had shown little interest beyond a polite thank you. Leo was smitten. Julian was unmoved. He only saw Julian there one other time, and that was the night things changed. A table of finance bros had cornered him in the back alley after his shift, mistaking his theatrical costume for an invitation. There was no heroic rescue. Leo, wiry and quicker than he looked, handled them himself. He was nursing a split lip and bruised knuckles when he stumbled back inside. Heading for the staff room, and ran right into Julian. The man approached him, his voice surprisingly soft as he asked if Leo needed help. Leo saw his chance. He let his knees buckle, slumping against Julian's chest. The solid warmth of the man's body was a shock, and a low laugh rumbled above him. Julian commented that even when he was pretending to be unconscious, his instincts were sharp. He didn't call Leo out further, simply helping him to a chair and cleaning his wounds with a quiet, focused intensity. The sting of the antiseptic was sharp, but the sight of Julian's handsome face, concentrated and close, was a potent distraction. He'd squeezed Julian's arm, and Julian had hissed in a breath but smiled, teasing him for repaying kindness with violence. It was that smile that truly undid him. He'd asked Julian how he came to be in the staff area. Turned out the owner was a friend. The intensity of Leo's stare must have been unnerving, because Julian finally asked what was on his mind. Leo, emboldened, asked if he could buy him a drink sometime. Julian had dodged the question, his eyes appraising. He'd asked if Leo always used that criminally beautiful face to get what he wanted. The compliment was all the encouragement Leo needed. He pressed again, and Julian finally asked for his name. He repeated it, Leo, his voice a low murmur. He remarked on the pleasant scent of lemon and herbs from Leo's soap before offering to drive him home, promising to be the one to buy the drink next week. Julian kept his word. They met for cocktails, complex and bittersweet. Within that week, Leo's crush had deepened into a potent obsession, a craving for contact. Playing a stupid drinking game, he'd leaned in and brushed his lips against Julian's. He hadn't expected the reaction. Julian had sat back, studying him for a long moment, before downing his drink and surging forward, capturing Leo's mouth in a kiss that was deep and demanding, spilling liquor down their chins. He'd pulled back and smirked, asking if Leo's first attempt was what he called a kiss. From then on, they were a regular fixture in each other's lives. Dinners, late-night gaming sessions when Leo wasn't working. Julian was busy, a man who ran a significant company, but he always made time. It was this that made Leo believe his feelings were reciprocated. It was this that led to his first disastrous confession. Thinking back on it now, sleep was impossible. He buried his head in his pillow, the frustration a living thing inside him. The next morning, he woke early despite the weekend, his eyes puffy. He cleaned his apartment with furious energy, and only after the courier had picked up the box of returned gifts did he allow himself to shower and crawl back into bed. His feelings, he told himself, were like a firework. Bright, intense, and quickly extinguished. If Julian had given him nothing from the start, he'd have been over it in a week. It was the mixed signals, the push and pull, that had left him raw. He woke again in the afternoon to a string of missed calls from a blocked number. As he stared at the screen, it rang again. He declined it, then, with a deep breath, blocked the number too. The calls stopped for a while. That evening, a new, unknown number appeared on his screen. He answered by mistake. It was Julian. His voice was clipped, asking if Leo was serious about cutting him off, stating that the gifts were his to keep and he wouldn't accept their return. Leo told him to throw them away then. Julian said his name, Leo, a full, formal sound he'd never used before. It was unnerving. Julian asked if he wanted to fight. Leo said it wasn't a fight. It was an ending. He didn't know what Julian saw him as, but if there was no genuine interest, he was done trying. A long silence stretched over the line before Julian spoke 3 words. "Come downstairs." Leo pulled back his curtain. The familiar black sedan was parked across the street. A part of him wanted to run down, but the memory of those rejections held him back. It was better to make a clean break. He told Julian to go home, then turned off his lights and stood in the darkness of his room. The phone didn't ring again. He watched as Julian remained in the car, a solitary figure in the night, until sometime after midnight, when the engine finally started and the car pulled away. On Monday, heading to his morning lecture, Leo walked past the spot where Julian's car had been parked. In a nearby public ashtray, he saw a small mountain of extinguished cigarette butts. Julian rarely smoked. The sight gave him a strange, unwelcome pang of something that felt dangerously like pity. That night, he had dinner with his old freshman roommate, Marcus. Marcus asked him about the off-campus boyfriend. Leo corrected him, saying it was over before it began. Marcus immediately launched into a lecture, insisting that Leo was too earnest, that he wore his heart on his sleeve, making him an easy target. He claimed that men didn't value what came too easily. Leo disagreed, asking what was so wrong with being sincere. Marcus called him a fool, reminding him of his disastrous freshman year ex, Gavin, the one whose actions had led to a campus-wide scandal. Leo clarified that leaving school for a year to enlist had been his own choice, a way to clear his head, not because of Gavin. But Marcus insisted that wasn't how people saw it. After parting ways with Marcus, Leo decided to walk home. The crisp night air was a welcome distraction. Was he really that naive? He just wanted something real, something passionate, without the games and strategic calculations. If that made him a fool in the eyes of the world, so be it. A tall figure suddenly blocked his path. Julian. His eyes were shadowed as he looked down at Leo. He said he'd been waiting for him all day. Leo's voice was cold as he asked what Mr. Vance could possibly want. After the slap, surely there was nothing left to say. Julian ignored the formality and offered him a ride home. Leo refused, making a sharp comment about not needing protection. In one swift movement, Julian closed the distance, took his arm, and steered him toward the parked sedan. With so many people around, Leo didn't want to cause a scene. Inside the car, he sat rigid as Julian leaned over to fasten his seatbelt, his lips brushing Leo's cheek. Julian's voice was a low murmur, asking why he was being so cold. Julian followed him into his apartment, an unwelcome and unmovable presence. Before Leo could protest, he was pinned against the door, Julian's mouth crushing his. It was a kiss of pure desperation. Julian pulled back, his breath ragged. "I waited 4 hours for you last night, Leo," he rasped. "You're ruthless." Leo shoved him away, his face a thunderous mask, and slapped him again. He demanded to be left alone, telling Julian he owed him nothing. The red mark of his fingers bloomed on Julian's cheek, but the man was smiling. "You're the one who said you liked me," Julian said, his voice dangerously soft. "You can't just confess and run away. That's not how it works." He surged forward again, pressing Leo against the wall from behind. And that's when Leo felt it. A hard, undeniable pressure against the small of his back. Something that had never been present in their previous, more controlled embraces. Julian's voice was thick and husky in his ear. "Do you feel that?" A jolt went through Leo, a sudden, blinding realization. He finally understood. It wasn't about a lack of desire. It was about an excess of it. It was the slap. The anger. That's what did this. He told Julian to calm down, but Julian only held him tighter, his mouth finding the sensitive skin of Leo's neck. 5 minutes later, after a clumsy, frantic scuffle, they were separated, both breathing heavily. Julian's eyes were gleaming, alive with an intensity Leo had never seen, like a starving wolf finally cornering its prey. Leo tossed a clean t-shirt and sweats at him. "Take a shower. Cool off." As Julian headed for the bathroom, he gestured with his chin toward the nightstand, at the foil packet Leo had thrown there 2 nights ago. His gaze darkened. "We're apart for 1 day and you're already bringing someone else home?" Leo was too flabbergasted to explain that it had been for him. He just told him it was none of his business. When Julian emerged, wrapped in steam and the scent of Leo's lemon verbena body wash, his expression was serious. He asked if they could talk. Leo, feeling that some explanation was owed, agreed. Julian admitted that he knew his repeated rejections seemed cruel. He explained that his delays weren't about a lack of feeling, but about the very thing Leo had just discovered. Their connection was intense, physical, but they barely knew each other. He hadn't wanted to start something that would burn out quickly. He wanted to build a foundation first. Leo scoffed internally. It sounded like the classic player's handbook. If he was so level-headed, why had he kissed him? Why had he encouraged him at all? As if reading his mind, Julian confessed that the kisses and gifts had been his way of staking a claim, of nurturing a connection while he tried to figure Leo out. He called Leo a beautiful paradox. He seemed so open, yet every time Julian tried to learn his preferences, favorite food, favorite movie, anything, the answer was always a variation of "I don't mind" or "whatever you want is fine." He felt that Leo was holding a crucial part of himself back. He didn't know how to make him happy if he didn't even know what he liked. To prove his sincerity, Julian took out his phone. A second later, a notification pinged on Leo's phone. A wire transfer for $50,000. Julian stated that since Leo wouldn't take back the gifts, this was their cash equivalent. Leo, stunned, didn't know how to respond. Julian said if his words couldn't provide security, maybe money could. He was serious about this. He was serious about Leo. Julian captured his hand, his thumb stroking Leo's knuckles. He wanted to help Leo rediscover his own passions, to find joy in things beyond just surviving. He asked if Leo would let him. Overwhelmed, Leo tried to pull away, but Julian tugged him forward, their lips meeting in a kiss that was no longer desperate, but questioning. Promise. That night, Julian slept on the sofa. Just before falling asleep, Leo received a text. A goofy, blushing dog emoji. Can't. Going to get used to the sofa in advance. Leo rolled his eyes, but a smile touched his lips. He was about to turn off his phone when another message came through. Good night. The dynamic shifted. Julian became the pursuer. He learned Leo's class schedule, often waiting outside with a container of some delicious-smelling food he'd cooked himself. He was an excellent cook. He respected Leo's space but made his presence constant and reassuring. The morning kisses became a ritual. Sometimes Leo, who often worked late, would be deep asleep, and the kiss would startle him awake, making him grumpy. Julian would just take the light punches and teasing insults, his eyes alight with that same feral excitement. One day, Julian announced he had to go on a business trip for a week. He promised to bring Leo back flowers, a clear signal that he intended to finally make things official upon his return. Leo, though he'd never admit it, had already decided to say yes. Then, a text from Marcus shattered everything. It was a screenshot of an Instagram story from Gavin, Leo's toxic ex. It was a picture of Julian, a candid side profile at a restaurant, with the caption, "New boyfriend." Cute, right? The air left Leo's lungs. He called Julian, his heart hammering against his ribs. The call went to voicemail. For 30 agonizing minutes, Leo's mind raced through the worst-case scenarios. Was this all an elaborate revenge plot orchestrated by Gavin? When Julian finally called back, he sounded normal, explaining he'd been with a client. Leo's voice was flat. Who? Julian said it was a client. Do you have a boyfriend? There was a slight pause. "I do," Julian said, and Leo's world tilted. "Or, I'm about to. I'm hoping to make it official when I get back." Leo sent him the screenshot. The silence on the other end was profound, broken only by a sharp, muttered curse. Julian swore he didn't know the guy, that he was just an assistant the client had brought along, someone who had tried to get handsy and been shut down immediately. He sounded frantic, telling Leo to wait, that he was handling it and coming home that night. Julian arrived back in the city in the early hours of the morning, looking exhausted and disheveled. Leo let him in and, in the quiet of his apartment, told him everything about Gavin, the drugging, the attempted blackmail, the public shaming that had driven him from school. Julian listened, his expression hardening into a cold fury. He promised he would make Gavin pay for the slander, legally and thoroughly. Then, his eyes softened as he looked at Leo. He pulled him into a hug, his voice thick with emotion. "I didn't get to buy the flowers," he murmured into Leo's hair. "But can you be my boyfriend anyway? I can't wait another minute." Leo turned in his arms, his hands coming up to frame Julian's face. He pushed him back onto the bed, a slow, predatory smile spreading across his lips. "You made me worry," he whispered, leaning down. "How are you going to make it up to me?" The morning sun streamed into the room, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Leo woke up curled against Julian's chest. The evidence of their night had been cleared away. Julian stroked his hair, his voice a low rumble. "You're awake early." Leo was starving. He mumbled something about ordering food, and Julian offered to cook, but Leo just burrowed closer, telling him to stay. 3 days later, Gavin, facing a lawsuit from Julian's formidable legal team, showed up at Julian's office, begging for mercy. Julian had security escort him out. The harassment continued via text until the day Leo came to meet Julian for lunch. Gavin saw them, his jaw dropping as Leo laced his fingers through Julian's. "Sorry," Leo said with a sweet, sharp smile. "Looks like you picked the wrong person to mess with." In the car, Julian leaned over and kissed him. "Still looking at him?" he teased. Leo's mood was buoyant. He turned back, a wicked glint in his eye. "Julian," he said, "I've decided to add a few more marks to your back tonight." Julian's answering grin was pure, unadulterated delight. "Is that a promise?" As the car stopped at a red light, Leo leaned over and nipped his earlobe. "God, you're insufferable." Julian turned his head just enough to press a quick, soft kiss to Leo's temple. "As long as you like it, I'll be whatever you need me to be." The light turned green, and the car moved forward. Leo watched the strong, confident line of Julian's profile as he drove. A laugh bubbled up from his chest, genuine and free. For years, the night had been a source of loneliness, a reminder of all he had lost. Now, with Julian beside him, it was something to look forward to, because he knew that before the sky went completely dark, they would be together, hand in hand, on the long, beautiful road home.